Welcome to Florida Focus, a college football podcast. My name is Brandon. I'm a lifetime Seminole fan.
And this is Chris and Jared, and we are lifetime Gator fans.
We are putting aside those differences, however, to bring you the fantastic world of college football throughout the Sunshine State. Today, we're going to talk about the Florida-Georgia game. Florida State wins comfortably against Wake Forest. UCF drops a home game to fall to 3-5 on the year. But as tradition goes, let's start with the Gators, and I'll throw it to you, Chris. Tell me how the game went and how the Gators were not able to be successful against the number one team in the country.
So the Gators got pounded 43-20 yet again by the Bulldogs. And in a game where, on one hand, you're kind of devastated. The other hand, it's kind of like, well, you kind of saw it coming. Because the last couple of weeks, you kind of got a little bit of hope. The way that we finished on the road against South Carolina, you're hearing the news that Brock Bowers is out, their best player. And then the game starts, and man, like the first drive could not go better for the Gators. They go right down the field and score. Eugene Wilson, he's heavily involved in that drive. We hold the Dogs to a field goal, their first drive, and it's like, okay, we can compete with these guys. And then the wheels just fell off. They fell off pretty quick. I think we gave up a sack. We went for it on fourth down on our own 30, and I really don't mind the aggressive call. I mean, I don't mind going for it there because you do have to be aggressive against Georgia. I don't think we're just going to be outmanned, so why not go for it? But the play call itself, direct snapping it to Etienne, and it looked like he was going to pass it, and it was just a mess. And it just went downhill from there. I mean, the next time we got the ball, our center got a face masking, which is impressive. And then I think the next drive we gave up a sack, and then the next play I believe it was Mertz fumbles it because the guy was in the backfield, and then we got our punt blocked, went for a safety, and meanwhile the defense isn't doing much. It's not. They're not really running it all over us, but they're doing whatever they want in the passing game. We're getting no pressure on Carson Beck. The one time we got a little bit of pressure, Princely came off the edge there. It wasn't fast enough. It goes for a touchdown. And it just looks like a better – I mean, obviously they were a better team. And we needed to play a perfect game, and we needed them to make some mistakes, and none of that happened. We tack on a couple of touchdowns there at the end, but really, I mean – we lose by 23. It really wasn't even that close because we were scoring on their, fourth-string defense. So, it was just kind of a gut punch. But, I mean, the grand scheme of things going into this game, I mean, looking at before the season started, you kind of expected this might happen. The only thing is that I thought that maybe the gap would be a little bit closer. But it turns out it's probably even bigger between our two teams. And the one thing that really stuck out to me that was the trenches. I mean, their O-line did whatever they want. We didn't get any penetration all day. I don't think you even heard about our linebackers, James and Scooby Williams, at all. I don't know what they were doing. Our O-line was just an Olay defense. Damian George being the main guy to just letting them in the backfield. We rushed okay, a little over 100 yards, minus 32 yards in sacks. So rushed okay, passed okay, but I mean, most of that's garbage time stuff. And it was just kind of like, oh, okay, we're not anywhere near to them as we thought we might have been. We thought we might have gained a little bit of traction on them, but we're just not. We're not there. But overall, still 5-3, still maybe a slightly ahead of schedule. And it was just kind of like a gauge to see where you are as a team, and it's just kind of a little bit humbling. Like, okay, we're not there. We're not even close to there just yet. But it's just kind of like you see the result of good recruiting over many years, and especially on the line of scrimmage, and that's where that was the main difference. I mean, they beat us all over the place, honestly, but that was the glaring thing. It's like, okay, they are much better on both sides of the ball on the line of scrimmage. And not many bright spots, and we can talk about them later, but that's just kind of my thoughts and see what Jared thinks.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really much to add to that. Just if we're being completely honest with you, pretty much covered it. Florida just outmanned it, both the lines of scrimmage, and I mean, I think really that's to be expected. I mean, there's so many true freshmen playing right now, and it's just going to be. I think Napier mentioned it. Like, they have to chase that team down, and that's. I mean, he's absolutely right. So, you're doing the right things on the recruiting trail. You're going after the right positions off the recruiting trail. Maybe offensive line recruiting could be a little bit stronger, a bit faster. It'll be interesting to see what the Gators do in the portal there to make up for that. But yeah, you mentioned George, and honestly, it's just I don't know, man. He had the same issues that at Alabama as we saw yesterday, where he's just physically, he may be that guy, but in the heat of the moment in the game, he makes a lot of mistakes. He's out of position a lot. His footwork's not great, so he may be that in practice, Monday through Friday, but come game day, it's just not there. And we've seen it all year long. So it really makes you wonder what this offensive line could have looked like maybe if Keontae Goodwin hadn't have had to take that leave, and transfer out due to those personal issues with his mom. So, obviously there's a guy that you're probably missing quite a bit right there. But yeah, I mean, like I said, not much else to cover. We'll see. We'll see where it goes from here.
I think y'all summarized it pretty well. Graham Mersh just had zero time to do anything in this game, and I thought the fourth down call was actually a pretty good design. I don't know if that was the time or place for it, but that was actually pretty ingenious. But just not enough. And you're right, the line of scrimmage and every other aspect of the game, Georgia was just dominant.
Yeah, I think maybe because you'd hopefully you're good enough team to just get a yard, but maybe that's just a sign of Napier knowing that we're not good enough to get a yard against the number one team. So let's try something different. But it's interesting. You get things like Trey Wilson at first drive. I don't know, 5 catches, he has a touchdown, and you don't really see much of him the rest of the game. I don't know if that's a play call thing, if that's Georgia just taking him away, or if it's just the fact that they figured out, hey, we can just send 4 guys, and that's going to be enough to pressure Mertz. And I like Jared said, I think we are recruiting well the last year, especially, and even the transfer portal. Like the D line, I think we've really hit that really well, and I think we're in this recruiting class too. So I think that's coming, but we've really got to figure out the offensive line. Like we haven't done well in recruiting. We've got tried to patchwork through the transfer portal. That's not really panning out the way we hoped. So if we get some offensive line help, because I think we have a quarterback of the future coming in. We got obviously some talent around him, but that's that big glaring thing that we are just lacking and behind. Until that gets fixed, we are not going to be where we want to be offensively. But overall, we needed to win the turnover battle. That didn't happen. We needed a break on special teams. They didn't happen. We needed Georgia to play undisciplined, and that didn't happen. So it kind of stinks. It kind of was laughable at some points. I do like the fact, even though it was a backup, I do like the fact that we did continue to fight and put some points on the board and trying to hopefully that translates next week. But I'm not too worried about it because it just was expected. It's the number one team back to back. I say it's the new Bama. Like the way Saban had his teams going, that's the way Kirby's got his teams right now. And so, yeah, it stinks for sure. But grand scheme of things, it is what it is, So just on to the next, I guess.
Okay. Any final thoughts before we move on?
No, I'm done. I'm done with that game.
Moving forward. Understood. One team that did move forward from a previous 3-year losing streak over against Wake Forest were the Noles. So for the first time in 4 tries, the Seminoles are victorious against Wake Forest in a game that was never really in contention. Florida State had a 34-7 lead at halftime, and Wake Forest only completed 6 passes in this game. I think they barely broke 100 yards rushing. It was just bad. I guess the downside of this one was Florida State kind of allowed some penalties or took the foot off the gas in the third quarter, which was kind of surprising. But, other than that, your kicker misses a field goal. I'd be nitpicking to say there was anything bad about this squad or performance. Florida State showed up and did business. You had your big plays. You saw that Keon Coleman was a target of a lot of the offense. Benson was still able to get a lot of carries, including an 80-yard catch for a touchdown. And the Noles continue to do what they've been doing all year, which is win and score a lot of points. The streak continues. So right now in the season, and yet another game where you score 30-plus points, the defense doesn't give up a lot of offense or a lot of yards to the offense, and you win pretty handily. I don't really know much else to elaborate on that.
Yeah, I'll just say that. I mean, it's been talked about a lot, but Jordan Travis, just especially the first half, just the way he's just stepped up and just seeing the weapons around him and what he can do with it. It's just it's impressive. It's passed for 359, 3 touchdowns. Also ran for a touchdown. He's a special quarterback for sure. And yeah, I thought that maybe they would sleepwalk at the beginning, but they've been proving me wrong all year. That I think, okay, this is a game where they're gonna let the team hang around for 4 quarters, and they don't do that. So kudos to them, and another big win. I mean, road win's always impressive, even if it's Wake Forest, but to win on the road in that fashion, very impressive by the Noles.
Yeah, and I don't know what we'd have to go back and check the tape, but I'm pretty sure I said like 41-10 on this one. I could be wrong, but I mean, I'll have to go back and look at that because I could be way off, but I'm pretty sure it was something like that. So, I mean, like you both said, is winning exactly what we kind of thought it would be, and good win, obviously, like Chris said. So on to the next, right?
Yep.
Should be some big games come down the pipe.
Yeah, it's been really kind of a sneakily good performance. Not that Jordan Travis, you're going to say, is going to sneak up on somebody and you're not going to be prepared for him, but the numbers he keeps putting up. I mean, we talked about how he's the overall offensive leader in Florida State history. Now he's creeping up on. He broke another record against Jameis Winston with consecutive games with 2 total touchdowns. Now it's looking like he can break into the top 3 of total wins. Quarterback with the second most wins in Florida State history, Chris Ricks.
Really?
That's who he's going after. It wasn't a great period in Florida State history, but he started like all 4 seasons, so
okay. That'll do it.
Quantity over quality with him. But anyway,
that's funny.
Yeah, we will go ahead and move on. So UCF, Jared, you and I both really wanted the Knights to win this one. It just wasn't in the cards, and the Mountaineers win in Orlando.
And honestly, Brandon, I mean, I know that you were very busy and you had a lot going on, but I'm assuming you still were able to kind of tune in and really check this game out. But man, this was a really frustrating game to watch. Obviously, I'm not a UCF fan. I don't really have any ties to the program. In fact, if you looked at my Twitter feed, you would think like I'm a UCF hater more than anything. But this is a game where I really pegged UCF to get that first win. And man, John Rice Plumlee is just so frustrating to watch in this game. And, I know that he had that period there where they were like, oh, well, he hasn't thrown an incomplete pass because it's either been a completion or interception.
Right. And,
I mean, that's like a fun, I guess, thing to talk about. But, man, that's not it. The quarterback play here was just bad. All around, and even on those ones where I think he was like 15 or something like that. Where he had before he was in quote unquote incompletion, but even in those plays, I just never felt like he was dialed in or that he was on. I felt like there was still a lot lacking from that quarterback play. And maybe some UCF fans would like to disagree, but just from what I saw, man, it was a really frustrating day. And every time, there would be an opportunity to capture momentum or to kind of swing some score back in favor because, UCF was able to kind of keep it close there, even kind of into the later part of that second half. But Plumlee just would never give them a chance to pull that off. And, you could talk about Gus Malzahn, you could talk about the offense, but, for me, it was just really frustrating to watch that quarterback play.
Yeah, this is a game that I thought, I was on board too. I thought that after the Oklahoma performance that they were really going to turn it around, especially at home. And John Rice, he's up and down. Like sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not so good. It's kind of holding them back, and then their defense continues to just let them down, allowing 41 points, 286 on the ground. That's not going to help at all, and especially the UCF team that wants to go up tempo and fast. But if you're on the sidelines a lot because your defense can't stop anybody, that's really going to help the momentum that you need for offensively. But It's a heartbreaker for the Knights, man. I really thought this was maybe. I initially I didn't think it was on, and you guys talked me into it, and I was like, okay, yeah, they're gonna win, and now they let us all down.
I'm sorry, Chris. Yeah, and in a game that UCF outgained the Mountaineers, it's just the turnovers. You just can't do that against a Big 12 squad and expect to just be okay. You're going to have to do -1 or better with turnovers. And, I know there's some luck with turnovers, especially like the first interception he throws, like goes off the foot of a wide receiver and they pick it off. I mean, just stuff you just wouldn't see unless it's like Scott Frost playing Nebraska in 97. That funky stuff that happens sometimes. And yeah, West Virginia just made them pay over and over. And it wasn't going to happen for the Knights.
The wildest thing about this game, Brandon, is you look at that. It's what was it, like 24-21 going into the fourth or something like that. It was really close there, and then you give up 17 points in the fourth quarter. There, if you're the Knights, so I mean, it was sort of just kind of one of those things where it was just there was teetering. And it was never able to kind of swing that in UCF's favor, and West Virginia just pulled away there at the end. And so, I mean, it was not like it came down to the wire, but if you were watching that game and you're a UCF fan and you're going in the fourth quarter and you're thinking, man, like, we're clearly in this game, and they were, even despite, some questionable play there and some bad quarterback play. And, maybe some swings, and man, West Virginia just did what West Virginia did what some teams can just find a way sometimes to do. And I'm not saying they're a good team or a great team, but in that moment, in that quarter, they took advantage of every opportunity they had. Put 17 up in that fourth and closed the book on it. So tough day.
That's the third Big 12 game that they've lost it in the fourth, or they've been competitive, and maybe there's some conditioning to be had there. We'll see, but there's hope. The good news moving forward is that we'll go ahead and jump to next week. UCF or Cincinnati, one of them will get their first conference win next week because they're both 0-5. I'm going to take UCF to finally get their first one. I'm going to be stubborn and stick with them until it happens. But Cincinnati's bad. Cincinnati lost to Miami of Ohio in week 3. They were decently competitive against Oklahoma, but they've been housed by a bunch of squads, including BYU, who's not a good team. But give me the Knights on the road.
Yeah, I mean, if we're doing this, let's get into it. Yeah, Knights by 1 million. I'm not a big fan of Cincinnati. I mean, Jared and I know that their quarterback is Emory Jones and leading receiver is Xavier Henderson, 2 former Gators that we weren't too sad when they left. Let's just say that. But I mean, UCF's on a 5-game losing streak. Well, Cincinnati is on a 6-game losing streak. So this is going to be a fun one. And even though it's on the road, I'm still going the Knights because I just I think you see potential there. Like you said, they've been losing close games. You see, like, okay, maybe if they just get it together here and there, they could win a game. But I see nothing out of Cincinnati. I got no faith in them doing anything. So market right now, UCF will score 1 million, and Cincinnati might squeak out a field goal.
Well, if there's one thing that could offset up and down quarterback play from John Rice Plumlee, it is open and outright bad quarterback play from Emory Jones. And that honestly could be your linchpin in the game, and who's gonna out bad who, and Emory Jones wins that contest every time in my mind, hands down. I don't even think that's a debate. So I would agree with Chris there. And that's not even me hating. He's just not a good quarterback. So, that is what it is. Maybe it's a situation where maybe it's time to incorporate McClain a little bit there, Brandon, in your offense. You've seen what Plumlee can give you, and obviously he runs the offense like Gus wants to run, but, he's pretty efficient. And I'm not saying he's dynamic, but, maybe this is a time where you kind of like sprinkle that in maybe in certain situations. I don't know. What do you think?
I think McClain lost his job at South Florida for a reason, and it showed in high-pressure situations. Like, Timmy McClain is so indecisive and will take a sack on 3rd and 20 and then throw a pick on 4th and 33. Maybe as a trick play scenario, you could have him for a series or two to kind of mix it up or give Rice Plumlee a break. But, I mean, given what I've seen from Cincinnati, I don't think you need to throw a whole lot of bag of tricks on him. Now, having said that, I 20 minutes ago was talking to somebody about this game and was like the opposite, like empty the bag of tricks, like do whatever you can to win a game, and they're probably they probably could go either route with this one, just win, just beat anyone. I think Plumlee will come back in. It's been really rough to get him going on the ground, considering I know he's been out for I think was it 4 games or 5. He's only got 200 rushing yards, and they really want to run him more. RJ Harvey's got 712, which means he's on track for 1,000 this year. Keep getting some more guys involved. Trent Whittemore finally gets his first touches of the season. He returns a punt, which he has a fair catch for, but he catches 3 catches for 35 yards. Get some of your other guys that have the transfer from Florida, some other guys involved, and I think that's maybe what Cincinnati. It's a common opponent. You've seen them a lot. You don't like each other. You're kind of familiar with what to expect. Just play yourself, be yourself. Just tell yourself that over and over this week.
Yeah, I think as far as the bag of tricks, I think UCF, first down, I think what they really should do is just punt it to Cincinnati, put it into the hands of Emory Jones, and he will do the rest for you.
As wild as that may sound, I mean, he's not all the way wrong. Good things happen to opposing defenses when Emory Jones is taken.
Yeah.
Oh, this is fantastic.
Let's do this. And the great thing is Xavier Henderson, he likes to return punts. So,
yeah,
there you go. Punt it to him, and if for some reason he doesn't fumble it, Emory Jones gets the ball next, and victory Knights.
Yeah, and what's great about the Xavier Henderson returning punts there for Cincinnati is you're in no way, shape, or form in danger of a good return, right? So, you don't have to worry about that. Special teams can just punt the ball, take a nap. I mean, by the time they wake up, he's gained like 10 yards, maybe. So, not an explosive playmaker there. He has speed overall, but explosive returning punts is a wild position to put Xavier Henderson in. So it kind of really casts a huge shadow over the rest of your playmakers if that's your dynamic guy that's fielding your punts.
I mean, he does have like cheetah-like speed. A cheetah in quicksand, but cheetah-like nonetheless.
Yeah.
This is by far my best game preview. This is fantastic. I wish more teams would play against former Gator players. This is great.
I mean, it's just guys that we've been familiar with and we've seen, and we know what they bring to the table, and it's not much. Unfortunately, there for the Bearcats, it's interesting that their coaching staff put the fate of their program in the hands of Emory Jones and Xavier Henderson this year. And it's even crazier when you watch a Cincinnati game. Like, I would give it to a playmaker like Xavier Henderson. I'm like, I don't know what college football you've been watching, but playmaker and Xavier Henderson are not in the same sentence. So it's an interesting thing. So,
wild stuff.
I'm excited for like 3rd and 9. Emory Jones runs it for a gain of 5. So
really good.
Should be a good one. Should be a fun one to watch there.
I'm excited for the screen pass to Henderson where he runs right into his blocker. That's one of my favorite ones.
It's a staple. It's a Henderson staple.
Big time.
Oh man.
But you were saying something about the Knights, Brandon?
No. I mean, that's it, man. You guys, that's so much more knowledge than I could have ever dropped. That is fantastic.
Just facts, man. Just facts.
Yeah,
just
and
facts.
I am officially I'm on board. I know I called UCF to win out the rest of the season, and it would have happened. I'm not saying there's not a Big 12 officiating conspiracy taking place either. Like, I'm not above saying I'm not saying there's not. I'm not saying there is, but I'm not saying there's not. I watched that UCF West Virginia game, so as far as I'm concerned, UCF maybe wins at West Virginia. So like my prediction may still be accurate. We don't know, so we don't have enough information on that officiating.
We'll circle back to that.
I always recuse myself from that conversation because I've played in the league since '92 that has ACC as its refs, and so I stopped shedding tears in like 2004 over this, and I just accepted it's a reality. So for the last 20 years, bad refereeing doesn't bother me.
No, it's a reality. I'm just we don't know.
I don't know.
You know,
I mean,
maybe there is, maybe there's not. Maybe that's really a win. I don't know, but
I'm
yeah,
gonna tell you
no,
what. Go ahead.
we're going undefeated the rest of the way. Nice
Nice.
undefeated the rest of the way.
I will say, I think the SEC refs are getting jealous of all the attention, so they are catching up in just the awful calls they are making. They're like, no one's talking about us the last few years, so it's like, let's just make up for it.
Let's miss a few face masks
Let's
for Georgia.
just.
Ooh, that was pretty egregious.
I mean that. I mean, I'm not big on like the refs messed us over because listen, Georgia just beat the mess out of us. But that fourth down should not have been a fourth down. I mean,
Oh yeah. No,
I
it was
mean,
a conversion. It was a conversion,
he
but
converted
no,
it. I mean, I don't. I mean that did not cost us the game. I'm not going to say that.
no.
Um.
Yeah, this is more Chris and I just joking around. Like we in no way, shape, or form believe that there's an officiating conspiracy. We're just pointing out things for fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
For anyone listening out there or not listening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even like later in the game, we scored a touchdown, and it was the same scenario. I mean, the guy's knee hit as the ball's crossing the plane. The guys in the booth and the old official was like, "Oh yeah, I mean it's too close, so might as well give it to him." And no, it's reversed. It's like, all right, it didn't cost us the game. None of those plays cost us the game. Just kind of like, but you've seen that through the last couple of years of the SEC. It's just the officiating has just got way worse. You're like, I was under the impression that they were seeing what we are seeing, but apparently not. They got some angles that I did not notice, but I mean, not just us. Everyone across the board has been complaining about the SEC refs for a couple of years now, so they're catching up, definitely.
So that'll be a good time for us to transition because Florida plays Arkansas, and I know the Hogs have had their struggles this year, and Florida's a little bit of probably ahead of schedule, we think. But what do we anticipate happens this Saturday?
Go ahead.
Well, there's going to be a football game played in Gainesville on Saturday. Kickoff's going to be at noon, and those are the guarantees I can give you about this matchup. Is that kickoff will be at noon, it will be live on television, and that there will be a football game played. So that's about all the guarantees that I'm willing to talk about there. I expect Mertz is going to play pretty well, but the offensive line is going to have to do something better. Obviously, Arkansas has had a lot of struggles, and they have a lot of issues. They just fired their offensive coordinator. We don't really know what to make of that. So they're kind of 1 week removed from that situation. So they're going OC-less. Well, obviously somebody's going to take over play calling there. They still have a dynamic player taking snaps in KJ Jefferson.
Mm-hmm.
They still have some playmakers on the outside. So there's still some, this is in no way, shape, or form a give me W for the Gators. You're still going to have to go in. You're still going to have to line it up. You're still going to have to play sound defensively. You're going to have to figure out something about the downfield passing situation that you just can't really get a hold on. Gators giving up a lot of big plays in the passing game. Jason Marshall and Jalen Kimber have not been consistently solid. In fact, I would say Jalen Marshall is one of the most inconsistent players on all of Florida's defense. So a guy that was, hyped up for being maybe a preseason All-American type year has fell, completely short of that. He would be looking at maybe having to come back now for an NFL draft status. Your best players in the secondary, your true freshmen. So, can the Gators contain KJ? Can they stop the run and establish a line up front? I do think it is at home, and I think that's going to be a big deal. Obviously, Florida plays much better at home. So this could be a situation like Tennessee where they just come out. I think Mertz is going to take care of the ball because we have no reason to believe he's not. In what game has he not taken care of the ball? So, I think there's a path to victory there for Florida, and it'll be interesting to see. Vegas had their season total at 5.5 wins. This is a chance to go out and get your 6. So should be fun to watch.
This is a pretty big one for the Gators. I don't want to say must-win game for them, but if you look at, where we are and what's following this game, at LSU, at Missouri, and hosting Florida State, all ranked teams. One of them is a 4th-ranked team in Florida State. So you kind of have to win this game to get to bowl eligibility, to beat that 5.5, to get that extra bowl practice, those bowl practices, so it's a big one, and we're facing an Arkansas team that is definitely come reeling. They like at least 5 straight, maybe more. They've lost, and this is a third opponent we've faced in a row that is coming off a bye week. So that's kind of a fun thing for us. And like Jared mentioned, they got some offensive woes, fired their offensive coordinator. But, I mean, he's absolutely right. KJ Jefferson is a beast back there. So, yeah, he really concerns me. And because we're already not getting to the quarterback. So now, like, okay, so what happens if we actually get to the quarterback? It's not a guarantee that we're going to get him down. So their defense and our defense, I mean, stats-wise are kind of similar. And we've at least been a little more consistent on offense than they have. I'm kind of curious what to expect from them, though, offensively, after having a new coordinator, having a week to change things up. So I would expect this to be a close game, especially for our defense. We're going to have to figure out who they are like as the game goes, because I would imagine they're going to shake stuff up offensively. We're going to figure out what we're doing on special teams. We've found our kicker and Trey Smack, but everything else around special teams has just been awful. We're going to need that to not be awful this game. I'm still looking for some turnovers on the defense. Is this the game? You'd think so with the offensive that they've had this year. And I do trust Mertz. I really do. I trust him. And going into the season, two of the biggest questions were, would our defense improve at all? And is Mertz as bad as we think he was? So our defense have slightly gotten better, but really not much. But there has been some improvement on the defense. And Mertz actually has exceeded expectations for sure.
Absolutely.
How this game goes, I don't know. I don't know if the line is 6 so far. We do play a lot better at home. It's the blackout game, saluting the veterans, and we really want to bounce back and get that awful game out of our that taste of that awful game out of our mouths. If I had to pick, I think going before the Georgia, I would have been like, oh, Florida by 14, but now I'm like Florida by like 9, maybe. It probably is going to be closer than it should, to be honest. I think no one's giving Arkansas really much of a chance, but I think they scare me coming off after a bye week. They really do. So, I mean, that Florida by 6, I kind of like that. I'm going to give us a little bit more of a bump because we're at home. So Florida by 9, I don't know. I have no idea. 27 to what's 9? -9. Someone do the math for me. 18, I don't know.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, something like that. That sounds like a good odd number for this game. So Florida, maybe an uncomfortable win against Arkansas.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about it is obviously it's another home game. Should be a pretty good fan spectacle there, despite the kickoff at noon. Obviously, Florida doing sort of their salute to the armed forces and wearing their black jerseys they'll auction off to support different foundations there. So it should be pretty exciting. A really good unofficial visitor list. You have Jaden Bobs, the running back, who's actually committed to Arkansas. He's going to be committing to Florida. Florida looking to flip one of 2 running backs, whether it be Lacey, the kid from Texas, the one-time Nebraska commit who just decommitted, or even Jaden Baugh, who's currently committed to Arkansas. So they're looking for that running back too there in that spot. Obviously Amaris Williams, big recruiting battle. He's committed to Florida, but he's a 4-star defensive tackle or defensive lineman there. So he's still got a lot of teams after him. So getting him back on campus is going to be pretty huge. And then Michael Bourrier, who was a Florida defensive line decommitted. He's back visiting Florida. Maybe Georgia wasn't quite ready to take his commitment there. They did hit on some guys. They missed on some guys too. So should be a good weekend there, I guess, for all around, I guess, for the Gators. So we'll find out.
Florida wins 18-11.
Okay. It's odd enough to I'm not disagreeing with you on that one. That sounds just right for us.
Yeah, but I mean, for the same reasons y'all were talking about, is Arkansas is a little bit of a shambles now, and it's not as easy as okay, you're gone, and the next week everything is righted. It doesn't happen like that, as we all know. So, and thanks for the insight there, Jared, on the recruits that are coming up. It should be an interesting one and a good chance for you guys to flip some guys. How about that?
Yeah, should be some fun storylines to follow there.
Okay. Well, if nothing else to add, I'll go ahead and move on to Florida State. If that's cool. Preseason, thought this would be a really hard game, and Chris and I both had it as a loss. I think it's fair to say that nobody thinks Florida State is going to struggle against Pittsburgh now. They have had a really rough season. Their quarterback, who was I thought was a really good player and had a chance to go to the NFL, calls it quits a month ago and says, I'd rather just be a tight end for the rest of my football career. Really strange move to do your senior season, your last year of eligibility, after you transferred from BC to be there. So anyway, it is what it is. Pittsburgh's only wins this year at Louisville, and that's the happy one for me, right? Florida State was the target for Pittsburgh to knock off. I talked about how Pittsburgh has had a history of doing that. Well, they beat the previously undefeated Louisville Cardinals, so maybe they got it out of their system, if that makes sense. The only wins are against Wofford, and that's it. They're 2-6 on the season, struggling. They just got dismantled by Notre Dame. I think it was like 45-0 before they decided to take their foot off the gas, and finally ended up being 58-7. Pittsburgh's in shambles right now, and Pat Narduzzi made some comments after their loss to Notre Dame, almost blaming the players, and he kind of tried to put it back on himself, but it was probably too late. And I don't know. I think this season Pat Narduzzi's got his eyes somewhere else. I don't know that he's at Pittsburgh next year. A little bit of a discombobulated coaching staff going on. Florida State's favored by 21.5. Despite all of the craziness of the ACC right now, if Florida State gets one more conference win, they're in the conference title game, and I think they get it here.
I mean, you mentioned our predictions for Florida State at Pitt and earlier in the year, and man, in the famous words of Lloyd Christmas, I was way off. I mean, Pitt has just, I mean, it's so weird. I mean, in classic ACC fashion, you have a 2-6 season, but you do beat Louisville, who is, number 2 in the ACC. So just random, crazy random. Florida State favored by 21. I mean, they're going to win by 61. Like, it's just this team, they don't mess around. They're not going to mess around against Pitt. It's just they're going to steamroll them. You're going to see a lot of Rodemaker for sure. I just don't see any way Pitt does anything to the Noles to really scare them. So, and this Florida State team, I mean, all year I've been impressed by it. It's like, oh, this is the game they're going to trip up. This is the game they're going to let a lesser opponent hang around. They just don't. They're not doing that, at least up to this point. So I don't see any reason why Florida State just does not steamroll Pitt in this game.
Yeah, I wouldn't have much to add to it, to be completely honest with you. I think you guys have said it best, and I was the only one in the preseason to not pick a upset. So
good.
I think this game is going to play out, much like we saw at Wake Forest, and maybe even more. I think Pittsburgh is even kind of in a tougher spot. Brandon, you mentioned kind of some interesting roster moves and things there, the quarterback position. They did have the big win against West Virginia early on, right? But then we've seen that West Virginia is not that great, and they've kind of had their own struggles. So I think this is another 48-13 affair, maybe.
Yeah, that could be fair. And they played West Virginia tough, but they didn't win that one. But it was
that's what it was.
They hung with them really tight. And after that loss, I was like, oh, this Pittsburgh team is not going to win the games that we kind of thought they were. And so here's to that all being true. And you just keep the passing game going, get some guys healthy. Johnny Wilson's probably still out for this game too, I would think, depending on where he's at with his injury recovery process. Don't think it makes a huge difference here, to be honest. So,
yeah, just walk out with a win and healthy players. That's all you got to worry about this game.
Indeed. In true fashion, Chris, you just reminded me. Yeah, I hate Miami so much I just forget to talk about them sometimes. And they did play last week, and they won an overtime game of Virginia. So let's take a couple minutes to recap that. I didn't watch this. I was just blown away at how stupid it was that they were competitive against this squad.
Yeah, this is a game I've been watching a lot of Miami football, and it's not necessarily, I mean, obviously I don't care for them either, but it's just they were an intriguing storyline for me early on. I really thought that it was kind of a team that I didn't expect to do anything, and there for a long time it looked like, hey man, these guys have figured out how to turn this thing around. But since then it's just been comical. If you're a Miami fan, obviously frustrating. I've heard a lot of people online and on the X app and obviously on YouTube call them the cardiac Canes, and that's what they are. They will find a way to keep things extremely close. They'll find a way to get a game to overtime, and not in good ways. So it's not like a situation where like, oh, this is a close game. Let's find a way to win it in overtime. No, 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 no. These are situations where they have these teams outmatched, outmanned, and they're like, you know what? Let's figure out how to let this team get us into overtime. And the baffling decisions and play just continue to kind of haunt them. They have no business playing an overtime game against an opponent like Virginia there, and yet they found a way to do it. So it's just gonna be something that it's gonna be interesting to follow as they come into next year. Tyler Van Dyke with a very awful day. I don't know if you guys have been watching, but he goes 20 for 30. But he only throws for 163 yards, no touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. And so this is a guy that continues to be really up and down, mostly down. So, coming up with that Virginia loss, I don't know, man. This NC State game, it should be pretty tough, but we'll see.
Yeah, I was going to touch on Van Dyke and just where he was at the beginning of the season. I know the competition's, it wasn't ACC. But just where he was at the beginning of the season, where he is now. I mean, it was injured. I don't know if him not being fully 100% played into his bad performance here. But just it's baffling to see. Just it seems like they peaked in the first 3 weeks there, and just been reeling ever since then. And yeah, they shouldn't have been this close of a game. And you got to say one thing. I have found myself watching a lot of Miami Hurricanes football, not because they're a great team, just because their games are interesting in the fourth quarter. So it's not really a good thing that they are. But, it's you win, but you're kind of like, did we really win? And if you want to go ahead and transition to NC State game, they're favored, I guess, on the road, but NC State, they just beat Clemson. Now take that for whatever you want to take it, but it's something. And so going into this game, I would pick NC State to win this game, and I just don't. I was on the Miami Hurricane train, and I have bailed. Took a Ferrari and went to the other coast, man. I'm just away from as far as possible. So I'm gonna go NC State beats Miami, and we should go 3 overtimes. Why not?
the last thing I'll say, kind of, I guess, preview recap, is that one of the things that I thought would be a strength for this Miami team going into the year was their secondary playing athletes. I think I mentioned this before, but. And I think I mentioned it maybe last week or the week before, but James Williams and Cameron Kitchens are just continue to be a very unimpressive duo at the safety position. If you guys ever, want to watch Miami or turn it on, there's some glaring weaknesses there in the back end of that secondary. And Jaden Davis at the cornerback position isn't really dynamic to me either. So there's some definite questions there. Williams obviously was a 5-star commit. Favored to go to Georgia for a long time, and Kitchens himself was a pretty big, highly rated commitment there. So, quote unquote, the talent's there. Maybe you missing a couple evals. I don't know, but they have a lot of questions, I think, to answer outside of Reuben Bain, who I think is a phenomenal player. There's some questions on the defense.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with the secondary play, because that's what lost them North Carolina, and they just never were able to get that in the second half going. The coaching is what cost them the Georgia Tech game, and yeah, just some really weird calls and not able to stay on top of a game and kind of salt it away, if you will, is what has kept their last 2 games. But still 6-2. They've had some decent wins, and I'm not sure if we're going to see that team that beat Texas A&M again. It certainly hasn't reappeared since that victory over the Aggies. And I'll just, to be contrarian, Chris, I'll go with Miami to win this one on the road. But I'm not really confident in that, because if the secondary continues to be what it is, if Van Dyke, is a roller coaster performance where it's up or down, if Restrepo is somehow stopped, and I don't know how he just keeps getting yardage, and secondaries can't figure out why he gets so many catches a game, but whatever. So until they run into a buzzsaw like that, I'm going to take the Canes again, I guess.
Yeah, when it comes to picking Miami or really any ACC team outside of Florida State, it's just best to flip a coin and let that coin land on a roulette table. Like, it just that's just your best bet. That's the way you're gonna pick these games. So Miami could win by 1 million. I wouldn't be surprised. Miami could lose by 1 million. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, it's just nothing's gonna surprise me anymore.
All right. Very good. Well, any final thoughts on the week that was or the week that's upcoming?
Let's just focus on the week that's upcoming.
Okay, we can do that.
Just as a Gator fan.
Yeah. Very exciting. We'll get to see Chris actually in person live in the swamp there this Saturday.
Hey.
It's gonna be fun.
Spend some time with him, and obviously it's always a good day when you're in the swamp. So we'll see how it goes. I think we're 2-0, Chris. I think there at the Utah last year we won. This year at the Tennessee. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's gonna be refreshing sitting next to a fan that's not just a complete moron. Because every stadium has them.
Sure.
But at least I'll know there will be one that's next to me that's not a moron. So that's going to be nice. That there'll be at least one fan around me that won't be mad when we get a holding call that we legit held on the player.
Okay.
And won't blame every thing on the refs. And won't blame. And don't just yell that we should pass it every single play. 80-yard bomb every play. So that's gonna be refreshing. Those are my favorites. Just throw the ball. I'm like, you do realize there's players on the other side that don't want you to throw that ball. Very aware that you want to throw that ball. Go ahead, throw it every play. Okay. See what happens. So it's gonna be refreshing that there's at least one person around me that's not gonna do that.
No, it should be good. It should be a great time.
Yeah.
So
fun.
Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Enjoy it, guys. Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Chris, how can the fans reach out to us for feedback?
Oh, you should head on down to FloridaFocusPodcast.com for all your Florida Focus podcast needs.
Yep. And trying to be more active on Twitter. So if you want to look at some of the replies and the content we got out there, please give that a share or a follow. All right. It's been a great week. We're moving into the last month of the year. And we're going to have some college rankings coming up, so maybe we'll talk about that next week.
Mm-hmm.
Got the conference plays. The picture getting more clear, but always great to talk to you guys. Sign off for this week. This is Brandon saying go Noles.
This is Chris.
And Jared.
Go Gators.